I've made a list of these 10 things that I want to do every day. And the kind of basis behind it is your successful behaviors are going to lead to your successes, right? So as long as I'm doing these successful behaviors every day, it's going to move me in the direction of my goals.
Hey guys, I'm very excited to share this episode with you with Jason VanDevere. As you'll hear in this episode, he's got this awesome new goal-setting planner out that's called the Goal Crazy Planner. After we recorded the episode, he sent me a coupon code that gets any listener of this podcast 10% off their purchase. You can get that discount by going to goalcrazyplanners.com and use the coupon code Millennial. I'll have that all linked up in the show notes, but hope you guys take advantage of that offer. I've got one myself, and it's a super cool product, so hope you guys check it out and enjoy it as well. All right, enjoy this episode with Jason. Hello, folks, and welcome. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Jason VanDevere in the Mastermind. Jason is a member of the Foundation Mastermind community and is on an incredible journey that I wanted to highlight here on the podcast. He's a real estate investor, but truly a visionary when it comes to his entrepreneurial journey. On January 1st of this year, Jason left his day job to focus full-time on his entrepreneurial pursuits. He's the creator of the Goal Crazy Planner, a tool that helps you to plan and track your monthly, weekly, and daily goals, review your day each evening, and track your habits. Oh yeah, and he's only 24 years old. So Jason, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to kind of dive into a little bit more of your journey that some things I don't even know about yet, but I love to have podcast episodes where we can talk to people who are really in the thick of the grind, and what you're working on is super exciting. So I'm sure people will be excited to learn more about the Goal Crazy Planner. But just to kick things off, I'd love to understand a little bit about where your interest in entrepreneurship stemmed from. So if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about that.
For some reason, I guess I've always kind of wanted to have my own business. I grew up with our family business. My dad is a car dealer in Akron, Ohio. And kind of growing up with the family business, I always knew I wanted to have one of my own. And then I guess my entrepreneurial ventures started when I was in high school. I started selling sunglasses, candy, t-shirts, lanyards, all sorts of random things during school.
Nice. Yeah. That's like the classic entrepreneurship story of, selling lemonade, mowing lawns, selling things here and there in school to get a little bit of extra spending money. I love that. And so now you started working on this project with the Goal Crazy Planner. Where did the idea for that come along?
I've always been writing my goals down. It's something that my dad had us do when we were kids, and it kind of seemed goofy when we were growing up. I mean, we would be in grade school, and he would have us writing monthly goals, making dream lists, filling out the wheel of life. But it's always something that stuck with me, and when I graduated college, I definitely got a lot more into it as far as journaling every day, just really setting and tracking my goals. And I started to look for planners out there that were specifically designed for that. And there are lots of planners out there, but I couldn't find one that I liked enough. And lots of the ones that were out there were good for people to write down their goals and set their goals. But as far as tracking them and then having a system to hold yourself accountable, I couldn't find anything that was like that. So once I realized that, I decided I wanted to make my own.
Nice. So like, let's figure out the timeline of this. So when did you first start to come up with that idea and really start working on it?
So it's probably 8 or 9 months ago. So October of 2018, I decided that I wanted to make my own and started looking at what all was going to be involved in the process of putting one together.
Yeah, it's super quick. And I know you've done a lot in that time frame. And then as I mentioned in the intro, you went January 1st of this year, you went full time into working on and pursuing this business. So what were some of the factors that allowed you to be able to make that shift to focus on this full time? I ask that just because I know there's a lot of people listening who don't know if it's the right move for them to go full time into their entrepreneurial pursuit, or just maybe think that that's the move for them, but are trying to figure out from a planning perspective how they make that happen. So what's allowed you to be able to do that?
Probably one of the biggest things that made it possible for me to leave my full-time job was I'd started investing in real estate. So I have a 4-unit apartment building that I live in one of the units and rent out the others. And that's been able to provide me with a place to live and just enough money to cover all my bills, my car payment, food. So it's not like I was leaving and just digging into my savings. And then that gave me the opportunity to go full into this. And I guess it could have been something I could have been doing on the side if I stayed at the dealership working a full-time job. But I was excited about it, and I knew it was something that I wanted to do. And really part of the process was I wanted to meet and interview a lot of business owners, just top performers. And that was really difficult to do when I had a full-time job that I was working a lot of hours in.
Yeah, I hear that with interviewing being a big piece of what I do. I know the struggles of doing that on top of a full-time gig. No, but that's incredible. And just the fact that you made those investments earlier on, not even realizing that this goal crazy planner it wasn't even an idea for you yet. But once you had that idea, then you already had those investments in place on the real estate side that allowed you to make that jump. So it's super cool that you were able to have that in place and that foresight to make the investment that would give you a little bit more freedom and flexibility to chase a dream like this. So what is it about writing your goals down that you think is so important that helps people to accomplish them?
For me, it just gives me a lot of clarity. You kind of have the ideas in your head, but once you decide to write it down, it forces you to bring clarity to what that goal or vision looks like. And for some reason, once you put it in paper, there's a level of accountability with, I wrote this down that I'm going to do this. I wrote out a plan, and it's a little bit harder just to push it off, I guess, or to let a whole bunch of time go by without moving towards it. So for me, I would say accountability and clarity are big. And then especially once you start tracking them regularly, because writing things down, I do think helps a ton, but unless you're tracking them, in my opinion, it's not going to do you all that much good if you just write it down and don't look at it again. But when you're looking at it, tracking your progress and focusing on it daily is when it helps you just keep moving in that direction.
Yeah, no, totally. I love that you mentioned accountability there, because it's something that comes up on this show pretty frequently, and obviously you know the value of accountability, and I think there's a few different ways that you can create that in your own life. And I think that you're absolutely right that by writing your goals down and tracking them and having that tool like you would have with your planner, something like that in place that you can actually track your goals, is a really great step to being able to hold yourself accountable. I think there's things like finding accountability partners and joining mastermind groups, things like that also help. But for those who are listening, who are just looking to create some level of accountability within their own life, but don't really know where to start with that, they don't have somebody in mind as an accountability partner at this stage in the game, I think that this is a great place to get started with, by holding yourself accountable, but having a system to do that and an actual tool that you reference that keeps you on track. So with the tracking component, I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. So how does that work with your planner? Say I were to go in, use the Goal Crazy Planner to figure out what my goal is for this month. What does the tracking component look like? How did you kind of work that out?
So one of my mentors actually kind of helped me do this, and it's a system that he's been using for a long time. But kind of with any goal that I have, I try and break it down into what the simplest behavior or habit I need to do every day to get to that goal, to accomplish it. For example, when I used to sell cars, it was, obviously I would love to be selling a car every day, but it was really making the prospecting calls that were going to get me there. So what I've done is I've got a list of 10 things that I want to do every day. And they're kind of behaviors and habits in different areas of your life. So I want to get up on my first alarm. I want to text my girlfriend good morning, good night. I know you're big into meditating. I want to meditate every day, work on my planner for so long. So I've made a list of these 10 things that I want to do every day. And the kind of basis behind it is your successful behaviors are going to lead to your successes, right? So as long as I'm doing these successful behaviors every day, it's going to move me in the direction of my goals. So I have this piece of paper that's got these 10 things written down. And then every night I will hold that piece of paper up, and there's a card that's in my planner I call it a habit card that's specifically made for this. So you can write your 10 things out on there. And then I would go through it every night and write down on a piece of paper, 1, did I do that? Yes. 2, did I do that habit? Yes. 3, did I do that one? No. And I would go through each one, and then I'd give myself an actual grade. So if I did 7 out of my 10 habits, I had a 70% day. And it's kind of like if I had a 100% day, that would be my ideal day. So it's just how close can I get to my ideal day every single day?
Yeah, and I love that, because having that tool there then to make sure that you're implementing doing those things and starting to implement those daily tasks that ultimately turn into those successful behaviors. And I love that quote you said, your successful behaviors are going to lead to your successes. That's a great method for starting to build up those habits, because I'm so guilty of it myself, saying things like, oh, I want to read for 20 minutes a day. I want to meditate every day, different things that if you don't have a method to actually track them and keep yourself, again, accountable, like what we were talking about, they so easily just fall to the wayside and don't happen.
It's true. And just kind of having that sheet, lots of times I'll get to, the end of my day and I'll be going through there and I'll see, kind of like you said, on my list, have I read yet or watched an educational video? And I'll just knock it out right then, just so that I can check it off that list. There's something rewarding about being able to check it off and give myself a better grade.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned that you interviewed mentors and business leaders, and that was part of your process for putting this together. What did you learn from those conversations, or how did that influence the way that you organized the planner?
I would say most everything that came from here came from those guys, just as far as how they set and achieve their goals. And it was interesting to see that I feel like almost all the guys I met with, they had some sort of way. Now, some of them maybe did it on their iPad. Some of them, wrote it this way versus another way. But it was kind of, they just found a way that worked for them, and then they did it every single day. So I feel like one of the big things that I saw was consistency, as they found something that worked for them and they just kept doing it every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've seen that for sure in my journey, that consistency is one of those key aspects to really accomplishing anything that you have your eye on. It's being able to attack it. Some people think that you have to go with the most ferocious 10 hours a day until it gets done approach, which I applaud and I think is a great way of going at it. But if you have a really super productive Saturday, for example, where you work for 12 hours on your dream and then you don't touch it again for a month, you're better off actually just spending 30 minutes a day for the course of a month working on that thing. And if you do it consistently, by the end of that month, you're looking at far more time that you've invested into that than just that one day of really getting after it. So I completely agree. Consistency is a key factor there.
Another thing that I found that surprised me, and it's actually kind of what the name of the planner is based off of, Goal Crazy, is it seemed like the more successful these people were that I started to meet with, is these guys were they were kind of crazy. I don't know if that's been something you've seen when you're interviewing people, but I'm into that in the way that they were obsessed with what it was they were doing, and they were willing to take risks, kind of like you said, work crazy hours. They were just obsessed with their cause, and they were passionate about it. And it's kind of where I based the name Goal Crazy off of it, because that's when it started to bring the question up with me, like, what am I crazy about? What am I going to get completely obsessed with? And that was something that was really interesting to learn.
Yeah, no, that's a great observation. And I've never really thought about it that way, but now just as you talk through it, you're totally right. The people who are the most successful, have the biggest impact, they tend to really, really be all in on their idea or their belief system of what they're going after. And crazy is a great term for it, where they don't really care what anybody else thinks or what it's going to take or how it appears from the outside world. They're so focused on their mission and their goal and accomplishing that thing, and they're so dedicated to it that it may appear to be crazy to everybody else, but they just don't care. Yeah, that's a great call out. And so when you started working on this in October, when did you realize that this was something that you wanted to go all in on and leave your current day job to work on this full time? Because you said that January 1st of this year is when you went ahead and made that leap, and that's really a pretty short runway from October to January. So what was your mindset like then, and kind of what were the things going through your thoughts?
Probably the big thing was it was something that I was really excited about and enjoyed. And once I kind of started looking at it, and I was doing it on the side with my full-time job. And once I kind of realized, I am able to leave my full-time job, I kind of saved up enough money so that I could do something like this, or, the type of money that I thought it was going to take. And, with my money coming in from the real estate, I knew I could, but really it was just I wanted to. It was something I really enjoyed doing, and it was something that I wanted to learn. I might have mentioned to you the last time I was talking to you, I used to sell some other things online, some drop shipping, some other FBA, sending things to Amazon, but I never completely learned it that much or got great at it. So I knew it was something that I wanted to learn this. I really was enjoying the process of meeting with these successful individuals. And I think being able to sell something online and creating content is just going to get more and more important in the future as sales kind of moves to that approach versus, working at a car dealership. And as far as the negotiating, haggling, things like that, I feel like the sales process is moving a lot more towards online. So I wanted to learn it, and I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's really that concept of mastery, and by going all in it and spending your days really diving into this process of, building up this online product or this product that sells online and creating the funnels and things like that, you're gonna master this way quicker than, say, somebody who is also trying to do it but only has the opportunity to work on that, in the off hours. So I applaud you for that, man. It's so cool to see you make that leap, and just go all in on your dream there. So with that said, I'm sure there have also been some challenges that you've faced. Have there been any setbacks that you've had to overcome and that you've learned from at this stage?
Yeah, there's been a number of them. I would say this whole thing has probably taken 3 or 4 times longer than I thought it was. I thought I was going to leave my full-time job and have this business up and running in a couple months. just the amount of time it took to put all this together. And one of the big things that I've learned when putting together a product like this was getting critical feedback. Is I would take people out for a coffee or for lunch, and I would show them my design, and everybody just wants to tell you, looks good, you're doing a great job, Jason. And I wasn't really getting the critical feedback I needed. And my dad had brought up, you need to start doing focus groups. So I started getting together groups of people between, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 people at a time. And it was really interesting. Once you put people in a group like that, they were a lot more open to giving you critical feedback. And it would be people that I just met with a couple days ago who saw that same design, told me it looked good, and you put them in that situation and they would just tear the design apart. And it was really helpful, because it's like I did maybe 10 focus groups, and it was like every time before I would do one, I thought my design was ready to go. I almost felt bad asking for people to give up some of their time just to look through my planner with me. But then every time after I did it, I was so glad that I did it, because I would just learn so much. I was sometimes almost embarrassed that I had passed out the kind of design to these people, because they just pointed out so many, not just typos and things like that, but like, Jason, this just doesn't make sense, or I'm confused. I don't get how this works. It was really insightful.
Yeah, I think that's such thanks for sharing that, because that's such a useful tool that anybody who's looking to start something can consider, is that just asking friends and family and acquaintances for feedback in a one-on-one setting doesn't really provide them with a comfortable atmosphere to provide that critical feedback and really hit you with those hard truths that you need to hear, but might be uncomfortable for them to share. So getting them into that setting where you're encouraging them to go ahead and have that critical feedback, but also putting them in that it's almost like a mastermind group concept, where once you bring people together, they start riffing off one another and start to recognize things that they didn't notice just on their own. And so you can really dive deeper into, what areas of improvements there are on your idea, on your product, on whatever it is that you might be working on. So that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
And so through this process, has there been anything that you've learned that if you could go back and talk to yourself back last October before you even got started, that you would tell yourself in that point in time?
That's a good question. It's kind of like if I almost am glad that I didn't know how big of a project this was going to be, because otherwise I might have been a little more hesitant to try and take it on. I would say that probably some of the biggest advice would be just surrounding myself with the right people right off the bat. It's kind of like when I first started out, I wanted to do a lot of it on my own. I just kind of wanted to. I don't know why. But the more help I asked for, the more just avenues kind of opened up, and my network started to grow. And I think that's been one of the things that's really been able to lead me to this point, just the connections that people passed off to me. So I would say if I was going to do it again, I would start asking for people for help and spending more time growing my network, surrounding myself with the right people right off the bat, instead of trying to do it all on my own.
Yeah. No, I think that's great input. And would there be anything any advice that you would pass along, and it may be that same piece of advice, but to any aspiring entrepreneurs who are listening to this, who haven't quite gotten started yet, but they know that or think that they want to go down this entrepreneurial path?
I think the biggest thing there is just get started. Find something, even if it's something small you can do. If it's that you're going to go to a coffee shop and start researching something for an hour, just get the ball going. Like you said, when kind of you talked about how reading every day, or I would just start setting aside a time every single day that you're going to start working towards that project. Because once you start making progress and taking those actions, it'll start to become real, and those small, even if it's an hour or a half hour every day, it starts to add up. So just get started. Even if you don't have that much time to, just get it going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a big believer in the action begets action concept, that just by starting and getting moving on something, you'll start to build momentum, and what you're working on could lead to what your future business idea is, and it will evolve, and you'll be challenged, and you'll overcome, and you'll recognize you're not on the right path maybe in some situations, but it'll help get you moving towards the ultimate thing that will change your life. So amen, brother. And I couldn't agree more. For anybody who is interested in checking out the planner, where can they find that? Where can they get their hands on one of these bad boys?
So they are going to be available on Amazon. You can search Goal Crazy Planner on Amazon, or my site is goalcrazyplanners.com. So I can get you links for both of those, but either on Amazon or my website.
Beautiful. Well, we'll have that all linked up here in the show notes. And for anybody who's interested, I highly recommend you go and check that out. Great resource to get you moving on your goals, to have the ability to track and hold yourself accountable is such a massive benefit and a huge advantage in your own personal journey. So highly recommend that you guys go check out Jason's planner. I think it'll really be impactful in your life. So Jason, thanks for coming on the show today, sharing a little bit about your journey and what you've been up to and what you've learned so far. Pumped to have you here, pumped to have you in the Foundation Mastermind community, and glad that our paths have crossed.
Hey, thanks for inviting me on. This is a lot of fun, and hopefully I could help some people out there.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, would you mind doing me an enormous favor? Could you drop a quick rating or review right there in your Apple Podcasts app on your phone? It helps so much in growing the show and helping more people find it. And when more people listen, we get better guests to come teach us cool stuff. It would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.